Again, the flight controllers here in Mission Control Houston running a bit ahead of schedule. Everything looking nominal so far. They departed the 250-meter holding point. That should get them set up for to get into range for capture. The next holding point to look forward to will be the 30-meter holding point. Right now, the International Space Station flying 263 statute miles over the South Pacific Ocean, just about to cross over the the southwestern border of Chile. You can see right now, International Space Station is in orbital darkness. That's why the views that you're seeing from the ISS are a bit dark, but we're expecting to see a sunrise here at just about 4:38 Central Time. That'll start illuminating the Dragon capsule as it still approaches the International Space Station, now at 161 meters away from the ISS. Again, on track for that 6 a.m. Central Time capture. We are just actually running ahead of schedule, which is fantastic. This will be just under 2-day rendezvous to the International Space Station after launching 2 days ago. On Monday, August 14th, the Dragon capsule lifted off from Launch Complex 39A at the Kennedy Space Center, NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida, atop a Falcon 9 rocket at 11:31 a.m. Central Time. Again, near 2 days later, about to rendezvous to the station, that Dragon capsule carrying nearly 3 tons of science research supplies and hardware to the station. Actually, over 3 tons, 6,400 pounds. Getting a great view of the Dragon capsule in the nighttime as the International Space Station and Dragon fly 263 statute miles above the Earth, now passing over South America. Again, 6,400 pounds of experiments and supplies on board, plenty of science experiments on board, and in addition to some supplies. One of the major experiments going up today is something called CREAM, that will be studying cosmic ray particles. This is similar to another hard piece of hardware on the International Space Station, the alpha magnetic spectrometer measuring antimatter and dark matter, this one measuring cosmic rays. It will be looking at measuring cosmic rays throughout the universe, asking big scientific fundamental questions such as, do supernovae supply the bulk of cosmic ray particles, looking into some of the history of cosmic rays within the galaxy, and analyzing the energy spectra of cosmic rays, asking the question if they can result from a single mechanism. The experiment itself will sit outside the Japanese experiment module on the exposed facility. It'll sit there for a period of about 3 years, measuring cosmic ray particles ranging from hydrogen to iron nuclei. From this view, you can see some of the engines firing, Dragon orienting position as it approaches closer to the International Space Station, now passing 126 meters away from the International Space Station, again going towards that 30-meter holding point.
So hello everyone. Now with a slightly late commentary basically, since the docking or the grappling is running ahead of schedule by about an hour.
Houston Station on 2 for corridor monitoring. Go ahead, Paolo. Dragon starboard about 1 vehicle width and forward about half vehicle length. On monitor 1, I see Dragon about 1 vehicle width port and half vehicle length forward. How copy?
So today...
Thanks, Paolo. We copy. Everything is nominal and expected.
So today we are watching the grappling and attachment of the Dragon CRS-12.
Again, this is the view that Paolo Nespoli, who you just heard relaying the information down to the ground here, confirmation from Andreas Mogensen, Capcom here in Mission Control Houston. Paolo Nespoli up on the International Space Station next to Jack Fisher, relaying some of the information that he's seeing from this workstation called the Cuckoo. Relays telemetry information from the Dragon back to the International Space Station. He's talking about those cuticles that you can see in the middle of that display. Everything he's reporting is looking nominal. Again, Dragon is a bit ahead of schedule, passing the now 106 meter mark.
So today we are watching the approach, grappling and berthing of the Dragon CRS-12 resupply ship to the International Space Station. The SpaceX Dragon CRS-12 was launched 1.5 days, 36 hours ago on a Falcon 9, the first stage landing back at landing zone 1. Now the Dragon has caught up to the ISS over the course of 36
the International
hours.
Space Station and Dragon capsule now passing over the eastern coast of Argentina, now over the South Atlantic Ocean. You can see the Terminator line there, the International Space Station and Dragon entering an orbital sunrise. You'll start seeing the Dragon capsule itself being illuminated by the sun as it enters this orbital sunlight.
Houston Station, prime range is 99 meters, secondary 96.95, and situation in the corridor monitoring is unchanged. Thank you, Paolo. We copy.
Again, everything being reported nominal by Paolo Nespoli from the International Space Station. 2 teams here on the ground. Once again, leading the teams here in Mission Control Houston, Flight Director Mary Lawrence. She's sitting next to Capcom Andreas Mogensen, who is communicating with the 2 astronauts in the cupola today. Working with those team members is Paul Lane, visiting vehicle officer, talking with some of the flight controllers in Hawthorne, California at the mission control for SpaceX. Leading that team, again, is Paul Tompkins.
Now, as is the standard newer docking procedure for newer ISS resupply ships, the Dragon will actually not dock to the ISS itself. It will approach the ISS and hover still next to it, and it will then be grappled by a robotic arm, the canard arm, that's been on the ISS for a long time, and then be pulled in and docked by that arm.
Some beautiful high-definition views here as the International Space Station and Dragon pass over the Terminator line. You're now witnessing an orbital sunrise. The sun's starting to illuminate the Earth, too. You can see the morning sun reflecting off some of those clouds over the South Atlantic Ocean. International Space Station traveling at 17,500 miles per hour, along with Dragon chasing very closely behind, just about 90 meters away from the International Space Station. Some great views of Dragon as it is closing in on the International Space Station. The two vehicles, ISS and Dragon, over the South Atlantic Ocean right now, just about 258 statute miles. Dragon getting slightly closer and closer, again, just passing the 80-meter mark, getting closer to the International Space Station, awaiting a capture time. Again, we are slightly ahead of schedule today. The flight controllers powering through the procedures today. The capture time now updated to 5:53 a.m. Central Time. Again, we'll keep you updated to make sure that that is still true, but new capture time we are aiming for now, 5:53 a.m. Central Time. Now 70 meters and closing. Dragon approaching the International Space Station towards that capture time. Again, accelerated to 5:53 a.m. Central Time. Aboard Dragon is 6,400 pounds of scientific experiments, supplies, different kinds of research, over 3 tons aboard, both in the pressurized and unpressurized part of Dragon. One of the benefits of the International Space Station is that it is a national laboratory able to do research and take away the factor of gravity. One of the experiments aboard is the microgravity-grown protein crystals aid, understanding of Parkinson's disease. This is developed by the Michael J. Fox Foundation, Anatrans, and Compaq International. It'll be looking at the crystallization of a protein called LRRK2 under microgravity conditions, one of the proteins that is attached to the Parkinson's disease. Protein crystals in the past have grown larger and more perfectly in microgravity. So they will take a look at this particular protein, LRRK2, and to find the exact shape and morphology of the protein. This will help scientists better understand the pathology of Parkinson's and aid in the development of therapies against this target. Again, one of the many experiments aboard the Dragon capsule today, 6,400 pounds of scientific experiments, supplies, hardware, other types of things aboard. Now 63 meters away from the International Space Station, getting towards that 30-meter holding point, just a little bit ahead of schedule today.
Houston station on 2, approaching 50-meter range, ready for a corridor monitoring report if you like.
Sure, we'll take one. Thanks, Paulo.
Roger, so prime range is 5206, secondary 5102. Looking at monitor 3 and monitor 1, the light is within the corridor, and both on monitor 3 and monitor 1, the vehicle size is actually correct with respect to the vehicle. The light offset from the circle, monitor 3, we have, I would say, 1 with forward and 1.5 with starboard. Monitor 1, I would say So on monitor 1, we have the same as monitor 3, and a circle offset from the corridor. On monitor 3, we have we'll call it 1 with forward and 1.5 starboard. On monitor 1, it's essentially the same. On monitor 3, yes, we do see on monitor 1, I'm sorry, we see the vehicle position reversed, but is converging.
All right, Paolo, thanks for the report. We'll have a think about it.
And just to summarize what I said before, a lot of reports, but essentially the vehicle seems very stable, coming in nicely, and it behaves according to the briefing, so we see no problems.
We copy that, Paolo. Thank you.
You can see the Dragon capsule looking fairly close to the International Space Station now, passing the 40-meter mark, again approaching that 30-meter holding point. You were just hearing Paolo Nespoli aboard the International Space Station relaying some of the telemetry data he was seeing to the ground. Responding back was Capcom Andreas Mogensen. Everything looking good so far to approach that 30-meter holding point. Teams here assessing just the progress of the Dragon capsule. Still looking ahead of schedule. Again, that capture time from 6 a.m. moved up to 5:53 a.m. Central Time. Once the Dragon reaches that 30-meter holding point, though, teams will assess the departure of the 30-meter holding point to go towards that capture point. From there, we will keep track and relay the information to you as to the capture time. Again, that is 5:53 a.m. Central Time as it currently stands. Beautiful shots as the sun glistens off the solar panels of the SpaceX Dragon, the International Space Station, and the Dragon approaching land right now, 252 statute miles above the Earth, now passing over the western country of Mali, that's on the western side of Africa. The Sahara starting to come into view. Dragon now 29 meters away from station. Stabilizing at that 30-meter holding point.
All right, Dragon is now at the 30-meter hold. We're going to perform some assessments here on the ground, and we will let you know shortly when you are go to proceed with step 4 in 1.102. So please stand by until then.
Your copy, standing by for your go on step 4. Thank you.
Confirmation from orbit, again, Paolo Nespoli and Jack Fisher aboard the International Space Station, confirming that Dragon is now holding at the 30-meter holding point, those two at the controls for the robotic arm. Once it gets into its capture position, the two of them will use the station's robotic arm to actually grapple the Dragon capsule that's scheduled again at 5:53 a.m. Central Time today. Here in Mission Control Houston, flight controllers will be analyzing the data, making sure that everything is good at the 30-meter holding point. It'll take about 10 minutes or so for ground teams to assess that. Then it will depart and get into its capture position. Again, the International Space Station and Dragon flying 17,500 miles per hour, about 252 statute miles above the Sahara right now.
Station Houston on space to ground 2 for Dragon.
Ahead on 2.
All right, you are go to confirm 30-meter hold per step 4 in 1.102, and you are also go to maneuver to high hover in step 3 of 1.110 Dragon capture.
Roger, copy. Go step 4 in 1.102 and step 3 in 1.110.
That's a good readback.
Current fly range is 30 meters 78, and secondary is 30 meters and 63.
copy. Thank you.
Again, Paolo Nespoli aboard the International Space Station working with U.S. astronaut Jack Fisher at the Cupola Workstation, International Space Station, and Dragon capsule now at the northern end of Africa, passing over the Mediterranean Sea, approaching Greece. The information relayed from Paolo Nespoli and from Andreas Mogensen to Paolo Nespoli, going through those procedures at the 30-meter holding point, getting everything situated and prepared for them to be ready to capture the Dragon once it approaches its capture position, that being about 10-12, give or take a few meters away from the International Space Station, just enough distance to put the SSRMS or the station's robotic arm into motion to grab the Dragon. The International Space Station and Dragon now passing over the home country of Paolo Nespoli, Italy. You can just see the boot at the top of your screen there. You're looking at sort of an upside-down view of the Earth as the International Space Station and Dragon travel 17,500 miles above the Earth, zooming around just 253 statute miles above the Earth right now. Plenty of science experiments on board. We talked about the CREAM experiment that will be looking at cosmic ray particles, as well as experiments dealing with protein crystal growth. In addition, there will be some also nanosatellites, or more appropriately, microsatellites. An experiment called Kestrel I will be testing microsatellite capability. Investigation is looking to validate the concept of microsatellites for critical operations, such as providing lower cost Earth imagery and time-sensitive situations such as tracking severe weather and detecting natural disasters.
Houston Station on step 3 for procedure 1.110. We are about to proceed with the auto sequence.
Yeah, we copy and we see good load.
Dragon and the space station now passing over Greece, getting good confirmation, good words from Paolo Nespoli, relaying the information he's seeing from this workstation that you're seeing right now. The Cuckoo relaying telemetry data that's taking a look at Dragon as it approaches the International Space Station right now, currently holding at the 30-meter holding point here in Mission Control Houston, getting ready to assess the departure of that 30-meter holding point, getting into capture position. That capture time is, again, we are still running a bit ahead of schedule. Everything looking nominal through the procedures as the flight controllers are going through them today. Looking at a capture time of 5:53 a.m. Central Time. The International Space Station now over the Middle East, actually just passing over the northern border of Turkey, over the Black Sea right now. We're expecting that the International Space Station and Dragon will be in an orbital sunset at time of capture. Video communications that are being relayed from the International Space Station. Those cameras now switching satellites. You'll see a small gap in video communications here now, just for a few seconds, perhaps a few minutes, and also once again in a couple more minutes for a longer period of time. Just nominal operations, just the what's called KU, the video signal, just a short gap in communications there. What you were seeing beforehand, the view was view from the SSRMS, or what we call the robotic arm. Robotic arm was in motion, getting a better position to view the Dragon capsule. Dragon sitting at about 30 meters away from the International Space Station now. Looks like we're gaining some telemetry. Once it stabilizes, we'll cut to that for you. In just a few minutes here, the ground control, the flight controllers here at Mission Control Houston will assess whether or not to depart that 30-meter holding point where Dragon sits right now. Then they'll relay information up to the International Space Station that they have begun movement towards the capture position. Again, Jack Fisher and Paolo Nespoli aboard the International Space Station inside the cupola. In their hands are the controls of the robotic arm, getting ready to capture Dragon today. We're looking at a capture time again of 5:53 a.m. Central Time. Dragon sitting at about 30 meters away from the International Space Station, carrying about 3 tons of scientific experiments and research and supplies. And we went through a couple of them today.
One SSRMS is in the high over position.
Thanks, Paolo. We copy SSRMS in high hover position.
Confirmation from aboard the International Space Station, what's called the SSRMS, as Paolo Nespoli described. That's the station's robotic arm, is in position. Everything's set to depart the 30-meter holding point. Flight controllers here now going around the room, assessing whether or not to depart that 30 meters. That will be relayed to the International Space Station here shortly.
Houston Station on 2 for Dragon capture.
Go ahead, Paolo.
We are complete with step 3.3, and the crew is ready for Dragon approach to capture point.
Copy that, Paolo. We'd like to ask you to put the brakes on SSRMS, please.
The brakes are on.
Thanks. Station Houston on Space Ground 2 for Dragon.
Go ahead for Dragon.
All right, Dragon is ready to proceed to the capture point. You can expect approach to resume shortly.
Station copy, thanks.
That was Capcom Andreas Mogensen here in Mission Control Houston, relaying that the Dragon capsule will be departing the 30-meter holding point shortly, heading towards the capture position about 10 or so meters away from the International Space Station. Sitting next to him was Flight Director Mary Lawrence, leading the teams here today.
Station Houston on Space Ground 2 for Dragon.
And for Dragon?
All right, Dragon has begun its approach from 30 meters, and you are go to monitor per step 5 in 1.102.
Just step 5 in 1.102 is in work.
You can see Dragon departing the 30-meter holding point, now heading towards the capture position. Just a few meters away from the International Space Station, about 10, 12, give or take a few meters away. Now losing some video communications here. That was done before the command to depart the 30-meter holding point was done before losing communications here. We'll regain communications here in just a few minutes. In the meantime, Dragon on its way to the captured position, Paolo Nespoli and Jack Fisher and the International Space Station at the controls of the robotic arm.
For corridor monitoring on step 5, we see the mode and prior range decreasing. Current prior is 2876, current secondary is 2884. And we do see the light within the corridor. Vehicle size is nominal relative to the outline, and light offset is half and half starboard on both monitors.
Thanks, Paolo. That's all good data.
CCP lens configuration is nominal.
Copy, thanks.
As the view of Dragon was lost as it just temporarily as we were switching over communications, Paolo Nespoli relaying good information, everything looking nominal as Dragon approached the International Space Station towards that capture position, just a few meters away from the International Space Station, about 10, 12, give or take a few meters. Dragon now resuming its approach. Now just about to cross the 27-meter mark towards that capture position, carrying 6,000 pounds of supplies, experiments, and hardware aboard. It may be difficult to tell, but Dragon is slowly making its way towards the International Space Station at a rate of about 0.02 meters per second. Now approaching the capture position, which is about 10 to 12 meters away from the International Space Station. Again, about 3 tons, actually 6,400 pounds of experiment supplies and hardware aboard. We've talked about some of the experiments aboard. Another one is an experiment called lung tissue. The experiment will actually take a look at stem cells that have been recellularized to become lung tissue, just to see how that stem cell turns into lung tissue in microgravity and how those cells are characterized, and studying that framework. Once on board, the tissue has the ability to mimic the lung tissue and have the potential for testing drugs or chemical toxicity by biotechnology or pharmaceuticals aboard. Again, many experiments aboard, some with stem cells. We have microsatellites, investigations looking at protein crystals to help with Parkinson's disease, as well as experiments studying the fascinating parts of the universe. One in particular, CREAM, taking a look at cosmic rays. Lots of experiments aboard the International Space Station almost soon. Capture time still towards 5:53 a.m. Central Time today. Dragon is just 22 meters away from the station, approaching its capture position about 10 or 12 meters away from the International Space Station. You're now seeing both the ISS and Dragon about to enter an orbital sunset. ISS and Dragon now on the eastern coast of China, about to pass over the East China Sea just south of Japan into an orbital nighttime. We're expecting that the capture today will occur during that orbital nighttime.
Houston Station on 2 for Dragon, prior range 20 meters, secondary 2015, and no change on the corridor monitoring, and actually I would say converging.
Thanks, Paolo. We copy all that. Sounds good.
Paolo Nespoli from aboard the International Space Station. Again, he's at the controls of the station's robotic arm next to Jack Fisher, relaying that the telemetry from the Dragon is looking good. The two are prepared with the station's robotic arm to capture the Dragon once it arrives at the capture position, and they receive the go from teams here on the ground. The last of the sunlight illuminating Dragon and station as it passes over the East China Sea, just south of Japan, into orbital nighttime, 250 miles above the Earth, traveling 17,500 miles per hour. Again, the last of the sunlight illuminating Dragon and the International Space Station, both over the Philippine Sea now on a southeasterly course down the Pacific Ocean right now. Dragon just crossed the 16-meter mark away from the International Space Station, approaching the capture position about 10 or 12 meters away from the International Space Station. Again, once in position, the Jack Fisher and will use the controls next to Paolo Nespoli, who's relaying the information down here to the ground to move the station's robotic arm into position and capture the Dragon and the 3 tons of cargo aboard.
And BB range is prime 1486, secondary 1490, and nominal on the corridor monitoring.
Thanks, Paolo. We copy.
You can see Dragon still closing in on that capture position, slowly but surely. Station's robotic arm poised, ready for capture as the Dragon approaches the capture position. Now almost about 13 meters away from the International Space Station. The lights from Dragon starting to illuminate as the sun sets on the station, as the station and Dragon are over the Philippine Sea, now in an orbital nighttime. Station Houston on Space to Ground 2 for Dragon.
Go ahead for Dragon.
All right, you can confirm capture point hold per step 6 and 1.102.
Roger, copy. We see PV mode CP hold. Prime range is 10.79er, secondary 10.80, and CCP LED config is nominal.
We copy, thank you.
Paolo Nespoli from the cupola aboard the International Space Station, confirming that Dragon is holding at its capture position, just about 10.8 meters away from the International Space Station. Now positioned, flight controllers will assess whether or not to capture the Dragon. About to go around and do a go, no-go.
Step 6, we are ready. Let's say the capture condition is confirmed and we are ready for Dragon capture.
Thanks, Paolo. We copy. Please stand by for capture.
Roger, copy, standing by.
Ground teams assessing whether or not to go or no go for the capture of Dragon today. We're aiming for 5:53 a.m. Central Time. However, we will continue to update you as to the updating capture time this morning. Once Jack Fisher uses the station's controls, him working with Paolo Nespoli aboard the International Space Station, uses the controls for the robotic arm to move towards SpaceX's Dragon to capture the cargo vehicle. We'll be relaying some telemetry data as it comes in, how far it is away from the capture position, whether it's over the pin, and when the snares are grappled, then read the official capture time to you. Again, Jack Fisher and Paolo Nespoli in the cupola now at the workstation, using the station's controls to capture Dragon here shortly.
Station Houston on 2 for Dragon.
That's for Dragon.
All right, we have a go for capture sequence, and you have a go to perform step 4 in 1.110 Dragon capture. And at this point, please begin monitoring the backaway cue card.
Roger, copy. We'll start procedure 1.110 step 4, monitoring the backaway cue card.
Flight controllers here in Mission Control Houston are go. Flight controllers in Hawthorne, California at SpaceX's Mission Control Center are also go, relaying information to Paolo Nespoli and Jack Fisher aboard the International Space Station. They are also go to move the station's robotic arm and capture Dragon. Now working through the procedures to move the station's robotic arm into position. The Dragon, now currently holding at its capture position, will start seeing the view from here, from the end of the station's robotic arm. There's a camera here. We'll start to see that get closer and closer as Jack Fisher uses the controls to move the station's robotic arm into its capture position on the SpaceX Dragon, that little triangle you see there, that metal disc in the middle.
So they have now made final preparations. The systems on the Dragon and the station are ready for capture. They've measured the exact position of the Dragon and made sure that it is actually perfectly or almost perfectly still in relation to the ISS, so they can safely capture it and berth it towards the ISS. The actual installation on the docking port will take place a few hours later. In between that, NASA TV will be showing some info on the solar eclipse. However, if you stay here, I'll be switching then to the ISS livestream where you can still see the Dragon and the robotic arm. So I'll keep covering the Dragon and ISS during the whole procedure until berthing and installation. The installation at the docking port was originally scheduled 1.5 hours after the initial grappling. However, now with the grappling having moved up, the grappling has happened about an hour early, or is about to happen an hour early, so I don't know precisely.
Expecting to see the station's robotic arm move here shortly. Dragon holding at about 11.3 meters away from the International Space Station.
I don't know precisely if the installation will actually also move up an hour together with the grappling, or if the installation will still be at the same time. So about 1.5 to 2.5 hours after the grappling, the Dragon will be installed on the docking node.
Use the station on 2 for Dragon capture. We are at the end of step 4.2, proceeding with capture.
Copy, Paolo.
Station's robotic arm now in motion, getting ready to capture the Dragon here shortly. Four meters away from capture. 3 meters from capture. Dragon holding at about 11.4 meters away from station.
And we can see the robotic arm moving, although rather slowly, about to grapple the Dragon any minute now. Now the robotic arm is actually manually controlled, although with
2
some
meters from
software
capture.
help, but it's not a fully automatic thing. There's actually an astronaut inside the space station who is controlling the robotic arm over a computer and a camera and a software system. The Dragon will first just be grappled by this arm. You can see the hand now moving in on the Dragon, and there's this metal disc with the 3 small metal rods basically joining together, and that's basically a hand grip designed for
1.5 meters, everything looking good so far.
And 2 hours later it will then be pulled in towards the actual docking part on the Harmony node.
One meter away.
And you can now also see above the hand grip there is this aiming indicator, which is actually a 3-dimensional object, a bit like the docking alignment indicator on the Soyuz. It's there as a last resort if all digital navigation fails. This just works optically. It's a 3-dimensional object that you can
One
see if
pin.
you're aligned and if you're in the crosshairs. We're now at essentially the very last hold, the robotic arm just centimeters away from the grip, and doing some final alignments before it will then move forward and grab the Dragon in a few seconds.
Over the pin. Trigger.
The robotic arm now grabbing, it is now in position, trigger and the radio chatter indicating that the button has been pressed for the robotic hand.
And that is confirmed capture 5:52 a.m. Central Time, just north over New Zealand, over the Pacific Ocean.
And
again, 5:52 a.m. Central Time.
And we have successful capture of the Dragon CRS-12 resupply ship. Now, as the hand was moving in, you could actually see the pin being 3-dimensional, so you can not only see if your the center of your camera screen, the crosshairs on your camera screen, line up with the crosshair painted on the Dragon, but you can also see if you're properly aligned with the Dragon in terms of position, because that 3-dimensional pin that's standing out from the crosshair on the Dragon, if you're perfectly aligned, you're just in line with that pin and it should look like one dot, and if you're not perfectly aligned, you'll see it as a line as you're seeing it a bit from the side.
Station on 2 for 1.110 Dragon capture. Capture complete. Go for post-capture reconfiguration.
Thank work. Congratulations on a job well done. You guys have just won yourself some fresh food.
It sounds like a plan. And Houston, I really love the honor of being able to catch a cargo vehicle because of what it represents. Today has special significance because SpaceX-12 is the last flight on the original cargo resupply contract, and this, the 36th flight of a Dragon, stands as a testament to a burgeoning commercial industry that has become a pillar support to NASA's, heck, all of humanity's quest to explore the universe. It also represents yet another shining example of international cooperation in the storied legacy of the International Space Station. For example, in Dragon's trunk, it carries a cosmic ray energetics and mass experiment that will investigate cosmic ray origins and properties. This ambitious experiment is an international collaboration involving partners from the U.S., Korea, Mexico, and France, and that is only the tip of the iceberg. Aboard this wonderful Dragon awaits 6,400 pounds of cargo, mostly science, that will investigate everything from nanotechnology to the growth of lung tissue to a protein crystal experiment investigating Parkinson's disease, and many, many more. Thanks to our incredibly talented and professional worldwide team that provides the resources, monitors systems, and orchestrates our activities on board, we will be able to conduct more than 250 experiments over expeditions 52 and 53 with the science this Dragon holds in its belly. The crew stands ready to rock the science like a boss, standing aside our amazing ground team of scientists, engineers, and support personnel. With that, we need to get back to work. We got a Dragon to unload.
Well said, Two Fish.
Some congratulatory words from aboard. Again, Jack Fisher at the controls for the station's robotic arm used to capture the Dragon today. That capture time, 5:52 a.m. Central Time over the Pacific Ocean, just north off the coast of New Zealand. Some congratulatory words from Jack Fisher. Looking forward to unloading those 6,400 pounds of cargo, including science experiments, hardware, and other supplies aboard, including what Capcom Andreas Mogensen alluded to, some fresh food aboard the SpaceX cargo vehicle today. Again, that capture time, 5:52 a.m. Central Time, grabbed by Jack Fisher aboard the International Space Station, working with Paolo Nespoli in the Cupola workstation after launching just 2 days ago on Monday, August 14th at 11:31 a.m. Central Time. Again, capture at 5:52 a.m. Central Time today, August 16th. That'll wrap up our coverage of grapple operations for the commercial resupply mission 12 of SpaceX's Dragon cargo vehicle. We plan to come back on the air at 7:30 a.m. Central Time today to cover the installation of the CRS-12 SpaceX Dragon to berth to the International Space Station on the nadir port, the Earth-facing side of the Harmony module. That may come early, as the operations today hint at. We captured the Dragon just a little bit ahead of schedule today. We may come on the air early, but again, we're aiming for coming back on the air 7:30 a.m. Central Time to give you coverage of installation. Captured today, 5:52 a.m. Central Time, of the SpaceX Dragon on its commercial resupply mission 12. That'll do it for us here. This is Mission Control Houston.
So with that, the official NASA TV broadcast has ended for now. It will be back on air in about 2 hours. although it's not exactly certain yet, depending on if the installation will also move ahead together with the grappling or not. Now if you go to NASA TV, they'll be showing a report on the upcoming solar eclipse in between the grappling and the installation of the Dragon spacecraft. However, I'll let this running so you can see any progress to the Dragon and see footage from the ISS and the ISS tracker as the Dragon is prepared for installation. And I'll stay here and answer any questions and also keep watch when the actual installation is going to happen. Keep updated about if the installation will also be moved ahead or not, and switch back to NASA TV as soon as the installation coverage begins, and then also resume commentary. So for now, thanks for watching. This stream will however keep going, and I'll hope to see you again when the actual installation happens.
This is Mission Control Houston. Good morning. Today is Wednesday, August 16th, 2017. You are getting a look here live inside the International Space Station Flight Control Room, where teams here are awaiting the installation of the SpaceX Dragon cargo vehicle on its 12th commercial resupply mission. Some of the flight controllers from the Orbit 2 team coming in today. You can see in the front there, Mary Lawrence, flight director for the Orbit 1 shift. Standing next to her is Andrea Mogensen, the Capcom from this morning for the grapple operations. Next to them are the Orbit 2 team going to take over here shortly for installation procedures in the next hour or so. Next to Mary Lawrence is Rick Henfling, the Orbit 2 flight director for today. And seated actually to the right of Andrea Mogensen is Drew Morgan, Capcom for Orbit 2. Across the aisle there from Rick Henfling, the flight director for today, are the visiting vehicle officers, Paul Lane from this morning's shift, overseeing the operations of the grapple of the Dragon capsule for its 12th resupply mission. Mark Anderson, the visiting vehicle officer, next to him taking over for the Orbit 2 shift. Dragon is currently captured on the International Space Station. The station is currently flying 260 statute miles just east off the coast of New Zealand over the Earth right now, 17,500 miles per hour. Dragon is currently oriented in its installation position. Robotics officers on the ground are about to move it into its, are going through actually its pre-installation activities, preparing to actually berth it to the International Space Station today. Right now we will be providing coverage of the installation procedures. What we're looking forward to is second stage latching. That'll be 4 gangs of 4 bolts that are on the common berthing mechanism on the nadir port of Harmony. That's the Earth-facing side, the top of your screen that you're seeing right now. 4 gangs of 4 bolts, 16 bolts will be driven to officially capture SpaceX today. We can look forward to that here shortly. Operations for the grapple this morning went a little bit ahead of schedule. Capture time for this morning was 5:52 a.m. Central Time. This is after launching just 2 days earlier, August 14th at 11:31 a.m. Central Time. The Dragon capsule lifted off on top of a Falcon 9 rocket at the Kennedy Space Center on, again, 11:31 a.m. Central Time on Monday from Launch Complex 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Nearly a 2-day rendezvous later was captured by both Jack Fisher and Paolo Nespoli working together in the Cupola workstation this morning. They used the station's robotic arm once it was in its capture position to grab it at, again, 5:52 a.m. Central Time. Here's a replay from that event this morning. Paolo Nespoli was relaying some of the information down to the ground with 2 Capcom Andreas Mogensen, Jack Fisher at the controls using the station's robotic arm to grab the Dragon capsule this morning. from the common berthing mechanism, again at the Earth-facing side of the Harmony module. That's the module at the very front of the International Space Station. Soon we'll see the Dragon actually go into its pre-berthing procedures. That will just bring it closer to the common berthing mechanism and begin first and second stage installation. On board Dragon now is over 3 tons of science research supplies and hardware, actually 6,400 pounds of it. Many experiments aboard. Some of them actually include studying the cosmos, others studying protein crystals, a couple satellites, as well as stem cell research that is to be done on the International Space Station here once the hatches are open and installation is complete and hatches are open. Astronauts will begin to ingress or enter the Dragon and gather some of those materials to start studying and conducting those experiments aboard the International Space Station. Again, the Dragon was captured a bit ahead of schedule today. Flight controllers working through their procedures, powering through rather, to get that done on time at 5:52 a.m. Central Time. We have a clip of this morning's activities to play for you here, just to recap some of the capture of the Dragon spacecraft here. Once that clip plays, we'll come back and continue to cover the installation of Dragon to the International Space Station.
So hello everyone, we are back with an on-schedule berthing of the Dragon CRS-12 resupply spacecraft. It was launched 36 hours ago by a SpaceX Falcon 9 and was grabbed by the robotic arm after approaching the ISS 2 hours ago. Now the arm has settled
Expecting to see the station's robotic arm move here shortly. Dragon holding at about 11.3 meters away from the International Space Station.
Now the arm has settled out any left drifting movement and is now ready to move the Dragon. It has now already pulled the Dragon closer to the berthing pod and is now approaching at a very slow speed suitable for a docking pod.
Use station on 2 for Dragon capture. We are at the end of step 4.2, proceeding with capture.
Copy, Paolo.
Now on NASA TV we are now seeing the arm still in grappling because NASA TV is right now showing a replay clip from 2 hours ago when the Dragon was captured.
Station's robotic arm now in motion, getting ready to capture the Dragon here shortly.
This is a replay from 2 hours ago, and this is alive right now, and in a minute or two after the Dragon has been captured in the replay, NASA TV will also switch back to the live view, and we can then watch the berthing of the Dragon to the Harmony docking node.
.4 meters away from capture. 3 meters from capture. Dragon holding at about 11.4 meters away from station. Two meters from capture.
Again, the bottom right view is a replay from 2 hours ago, but that replay is now being shown on NASA TV, and this is a live feed from NASA TV, which is right now showing a replay, whereas the upper right view is actually live of the berthing of the Dragon, and the upper left view is also live, but it's only showing black because it's a camera filming downwards onto the Earth's surface at night.
1.5 meters, everything looking good so far.
And once NASA TV switches back to the live view, I will
1
pull
meter
NASA
away.
TV up to the full screen again.
One pin.
And yes, after this live event, I will also upload the full NASA TV footage of both the grappling and the berthing, as well as a time-lapse version.
Over the pin. Trigger. And that is confirmed capture 5:52 a.m. Central Time, just north over New Zealand, over the Pacific Ocean.
And while NASA TV just went back from the
and we're back live here in Mission Control Houston, looking at the International Space Station Flight Control Room. That was just a clip from this morning's activity. Again, that capture time 5:52 a.m. Central Time. Now the SpaceX Dragon, thanks to the robotics officers on the ground, have oriented the Dragon into its installation position, just a few centimeters away from the common berthing mechanism, holding just outside its installation position.
And while NASA TV is now switching back to a live view,
teams on the ground just going through their checklist to make sure that installation is okay. Then they'll begin the procedures to berth Dragon to the International Space Station. Again, we are waiting for second stage berthing. That will be the official time of the installation of Dragon to the International Space Station. 4 gangs of 4 bolts, 16 bolts total, will be driven to officially capture the cargo vehicle, and that'll allow the space station crew members to later today open the hatch and reveal some of the cargo inside, including some experiments, supplies, and hardware, and of course some fresh food for the crew members aboard the International Space Station. Still overseeing handover operations here in Mission Control Houston. You can see 2 flight controllers per console, just handing over some of the activities from this morning over to the new shift, the Orbit 2 shift. That'll be overseeing the installation activities and hatch opening today. Leading the teams again today, standing up on the left side of your screen, is Flight Director Mary Lawrence of the Orbit 1 shift. Next to her, at the very bottom of your screen, Rick Henfling, Flight Director for the Orbit 2 teams. To their right, the 2 Capcoms handing over Andreas Mogensen from Orbit 1, who oversaw the grapple activities from this morning, handing over his responsibilities as Capcom to Drew Morgan, the Capcom for Orbit 2.
Station Houston on Space Ground 2 for any available USOS crew member.
Go ahead on 2.
Hey, we're getting ready for the install of Dragon, and we're just wondering if anyone's exercising, if Paolo's still on ARAD.
And Andy, we have no one on exercise. I'm not sure about Russian segment.
All right, copy that. So no one on ARAD, no one on T2 or CBIS. Thank you.
Right. Do you need us to check the Russian segment, or are they okay?
Yeah, that's also no Russian exercise, so if you could check for us, that'd be great.
That was Capcom Andreas Mogensen, again from Orbit 1, communicating with some of the USOS crew members on board the International Space Station, including US and some of the international partners, specifically Paolo Nespoli aboard the International Space Station now. Randy Bresnik aboard the International Space Station, US crew member, grabbed the comm and confirmed that nobody was exercising aboard the International Space Station, at least on some of the equipment on the USOS side. That includes the advanced resistive exercise device that simulates weightlifting, as well as the Civis, which is the stationary bicycle, and the T2, which is the treadmill aboard the International Space Station. Limiting the exercise and making sure that no one is exercising currently during installation activities just minimizes the vibrations that are coming from the International Space Station and allows the installation of Dragon to the International Space Station to be seamless.
Excellent, thanks a lot. And just for your awareness, we're about an hour ahead on timeline.
Fit up, buddy. We'll do all the work we can tonight. So anything you can give us, we appreciate.
Thanks. We appreciate all your help on this.
So that was a confirmation from the International Space Station. No one is exercising aboard the International Space Station. Teams here in Mission Control Houston assessing to proceed with the installation procedures today. Very shortly here, we should see the Dragon get closer to the common berthing mechanism on the nadir port of Harmony, the Earth-facing side, the side that you're seeing right now, here shortly. You're starting to see the daylight come in and orbital sunrise happening right now as the International Space Station is 260 statute miles above the Earth over the South Pacific Ocean, just west off the coast of Chile. Capcom Andreas Mogensen also confirming that the timeline is about an hour ahead of schedule. Robotics officers aiming for approximately about an 8:40 a.m. Central Time installation today. You're getting a look at the Dragon cargo vehicle. SpaceX's Dragon cargo vehicle. Inside is about 6,400 pounds of scientific experiments, supplies, and hardware. A lot of different kinds of science aboard, investigating anything from astronomical investigations to microbiological investigations. One of them is called CREAM, ISS CREAM, actually. It will be measuring cosmic ray particles from the solar system and determining what sorts of cosmic ray particles pass by the Earth. Space station crew members will be able to access those experiments soon. The robotics officers initiating the sequence to push the Dragon capsule closer to the common berthing mechanism now. We should start seeing the Dragon cargo vehicle getting closer to the common berthing mechanism as we speak. Robotics officers using the station's robotic arm to push the Dragon capsule into position. You can see at the very sort of top of your screen different sort of divots at the end of where it is meeting the common berthing mechanism. Those are some of the areas where the 16 bolts that will be driven in to officially berth or attach the Dragon to the International Space Station, where those bolts will be driven into. Robotics officers holding the Dragon just a few centimeters away from the common berthing mechanism, just assessing some systems before they push it into its final installation position and get ready to drive those bolts. Dragon continuing to hold just a few centimeters away from the common berthing mechanism at the Earth-facing side of Harmony, Harmony being the module at the very front of the International Space Station, also the module that has the sleeping quarters for the USOS crew members aboard the International Space Station, including Peggy Whitson, Jack Fisher, Randy Bresnik, and Paolo Nespoli. Robotics officers now pushing the Dragon into its final installation position. You can see it slowly moving in and into its oriented installation position. So the robotics officers have pushed Dragon into its installation position, very much ahead of schedule, confirming to flight that Dragon is in position, and what's called the RTLs, or ready to latch indicators, are all green lit. Very shortly here, we should be hearing the OSO console, one of the officers here that will be driving the bolts to officially install Dragon to the International Space Station. We will read off where the International Space Station will be and the official time of installation here shortly. So first stage capture is confirmed. Again, we are waiting for second stage capture when those 16 bolts get driven to officially keep Dragon into place. That should be happening here very shortly. Flight controllers flying through the procedures today. Flight controllers now beginning the second stage capture procedures to drive those 16 bolts. And just getting confirmation from the flight controllers, the Dragon capsule has been officially installed, berthed to the International Space Station, 8:07 a.m. Central Time, 252 statute miles over the Atlantic Ocean, just east off the coast of Puerto Rico. So again, all 16 bolts have been driven. Second stage capture for installation berthing of the Dragon to the International Space Station is complete. That was completed at 8:07 a.m. Central Time this morning. Flawless execution by the ground controllers and flight controllers here in Mission Control Houston. Quick overview of the mission for SpaceX's commercial resupply Mission 12, launching 11:31 a.m. Central Time on Monday, August 14th, less than 2 days later, being captured by the robotic arm, Jack Fisher at the controls next to Paolo Nespoli in the cupola this morning, 5:52 a.m. Central Time, again August 16th, 2017. That was ahead of schedule. Now, also ahead of schedule, Dragon has been berthed to the International Space Station 8:07 a.m. Central Time today. Great execution by the flight controllers here in Mission Control Houston, and of course aided by the flight controllers in Hawthorne, California, and the Mission Control Center for SpaceX. And of course, with the work of the USOS crew members aboard the International Space Station, Jack Fisher and Paolo Nespoli working together to use the station's robotic arm to capture the Dragon cargo vehicle and the 6,400 pounds of experiments, supplies, and hardware aboard. Later today, the space station crew members are scheduled to open the hatch and reveal some of the supplies inside the Dragon capsule. Some of that includes fresh food for the crew members aboard. NASA TV will not be providing coverage of those activities later today. You can check the International Space Station blog and go to nasa.gov/ISS for the latest updates there. Again, grappled, captured by the station's robotic arm, 5:52 a.m. Central Time today. Officially installed, berthed to the International Space Station, 8:07 a.m. Central Time. That'll do it for us here at the NASA Johnson Space Center. This is Mission Control Houston.
So this concludes the NASA TV coverage of the grappling, berthing and docking of the CRS-12 Dragon resupply craft. Now NASA TV will not provide any further coverage of the hatch opening, however I will be setting this stream back up to the 24/7 ISS live stream, which will be essentially what you're seeing right now. Just I'll stop the stream for a few minutes and give it another name and restart it because YouTube doesn't like too long continuous streams. And there might also be footage from inside the ISS of the hatch opening in that stream. Now, as for further events, tomorrow afternoon or in about 24 hours, there will be a Russian spacewalk on the ISS, which I will also live cover. This evening there will be a Proton satellite launch, however I will not live stream that, I will only upload footage afterwards. The JAXA H2A Michibiki 3 launch was pushed back to 2 days from now, and on that same day also the Atlas V TDRS-M communications satellites will also launch. So the next live event after this and the 24/7 ISS live stream will be the spacewalk in about 24 hours. Of course, you can still always ask me questions in the live chat, and we will hope to see the actual hatch opening within this live stream. So with this I will be closing this live stream for a few minutes and then setting it back up as the 24/7 ISS live stream. And as always, thanks for watching.